Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the Positive Planet podcast on LinkedIn Live today. We're excited to be back for 2024. We're kicking off with a reflection of the sustainability trends we expect to see in the coming year. Great to have so many of you sign up for today's session. Apologies for those who tried to get on earlier in the month. We had a couple of technical issues and a couple of those sort of post-Christmas illness issues as well. So our podcast is a series where we invite industry professionals to come and chat about a wide range of relevant topics, share knowledge with us, and more importantly, offer insights to everyone who joins us. This is episode 8. You can head to our LinkedIn page to watch previous episodes and look for new and interesting episodes launching over the coming months. We'll be also keen to hear from some of you, so you can drop in any comments, any questions you've got as we go through, and we'll try and pick those up and address them. And we're also keen to hear any of your thoughts on sustainability trends in 2024 and their impact on business in general. So please ask any questions, leave your thoughts in the comments box, or feel free to contact us afterwards. Firstly, you will notice that we don't have Bryony with us today, so apologies for that, but we do have Adam, who is my co-founder at Positive Planet, and has some really interesting insights direct from our clients and across the industry that he'll be sharing with us today. Good morning, Adam. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Great to be here. It's my first time on one of our LinkedIn Live sessions.
Good. Well, I hope it goes well. And a really interesting session today. Lots to talk about. We've had to cut some of it down, really, because I think we could go on all morning about some of this. But just thinking about last year, 2023, hottest year ever recorded. We're capping off the warmest decade in history. Climate change is accelerating at an alarming rate. We're starting to see that globally we're off track to cap warming at 1.5 degrees above those pre-industrial levels. I think COP was a bit of a disappointment. We saw obviously some changes in direction from UK government as well. Loads of other things going on in business. Climate's starting to have an increasing impact on supply chains, and we're seeing other factors impacting those as well. And businesses are now starting to understand and plan for the knock-on effects of some of these risks in their own business. We're also seeing businesses feeling that climate-related impacts in 2023 will be likely to take bigger steps to reduce their own impact in 2024 as well. So lots going on. And what's your thoughts on what's happening at the moment?
I think that the sort of that last point is quite key. So when sort of sat speaking with our clients and with people around the industry, then that sort of that idea that those that have been impacted, so those organisations that have been impacted over the last 12 months through, as you said, through climate, are now more likely and more willing maybe to take steps and to take bigger steps towards making impact. So I think that's probably one of the sort of the big conversation points that we've seen. I think excuse me, I think with regards to sort of other trends for the year, I think there's, we obviously we both, and as an organization, we speak to lots of clients, sit on different advisory panels and boards, and talk about trends all the time, as particularly part of sustainability strategy planning. And the first thing is, it's a young industry, so there's lots of things always coming out, and new terms and new ideas and new thoughts, and trying to sort of to determine which of those are sort of going to sort of last, and which ones are around for just for a few months, and whether something should be sort of considered right now, or whether we should wait a while. That's sort of, there's real sort of you need to sort of really be really aware of all the all those changing things in such a young industry, I guess. What about yourself? What are you seeing for 24?
Yeah, I think there's some really big trends coming through. I think AI is really important. We can see from our own platform and the work we're doing around machine learning, the efficiencies that we're getting in early stages and what we expect to get longer term. And I think that's a big trend for business as well. That links back to also the whole cost of business crisis, if you like, and it has got progressively more expensive to do business. And I think people have felt that this year, or last year rather, and I expect that to continue this year. I think that's going to bleed into organizations starting to look for more benefits out of the sustainability programs. I think post-COVID, there was very much we want to do the right thing. I think now we're starting to see organizations saying, well, what do we get from this and how do we derive some benefit from it? So we'll talk about that a bit. I think legislation's another factor. We saw loads of that last year, and it started already this year. And, I think that certainly aligned to things like greenwashing is going to be a significant factor throughout the year as well.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else you think is going to be big trends, Adam?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I guess the big ones are, as you say, I think the sort of the green sustainable marketing. I think that there's we know there's changes in there and things that we need to be aware of. I think that we're starting to move. Organizations that have been spending the last few years getting to grips with measurement and reporting, I think, are going to start moving into change. So actually into impact. And so I think that's going to be a big thing. And I think reporting sort of is like, it's a requirement and it's a commonplace, and it's like we've done that bit now. We need to keep pressing on. So I think we should be seeing more impact and change. And I think there'll be, I think we'll be I guess off the back of that, in some respects, we'll be seeing that a green skills gap, where there's demand for knowledge and experience that just isn't available in the quantities that it is currently and will be required. So I think that's some of the big bits.
Yeah, and the other thing I think is that sort of nature-based piece as well. We saw it starting last year, and I'm seeing increasing interest around this and conversations happening around organizations starting to want to understand, or I think stakeholders wanting to understand the impact that an organization has on its wider environment, not just from an emissions perspective as well. Great. And we've done a survey as well, haven't we? We've been asking our clients what they think, and we've got some results from that.
That's right. So our lovely marketing team sent out or conducted a survey at the end of last year. So it's fresh. Looking at trends and topics for 24 for my clients. Then they weren't all environmental and sustainable. Obviously, some of them were general business and operational sort of responses, but they were very interesting to read. Some of the key bits were that over half, so 57%, responded saying that they believe AI is important to them this year. So as you've just touched on a moment ago, Stephen, and we're looking at just shy of 50% were suggesting that they're expecting to see an increase in reporting, so both sustainability and broader ESG reporting requirements across their sectors and their businesses. So they're two of the trends that come out. The report that you can download, so that should appear on the screen shortly, and you'll be able to click that link and download the report if you want to have a look through that yourself. Yeah,
great. And should we kick off with AI, because that's quite a big topic, and I'm hearing from a lot of our clients that this is something that they're starting to look at this year, whether it's across all different parts of the business. I think we've seen a lot of it coming into things like marketing, but it is starting to become a factor in sustainability as well. And I saw a report from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they estimate that using AI for environmental applications could contribute up to 4 trillion to the global economy in 2030. And it's those predictive capabilities that can be utilized to analyze big data, which we have a lot of in our sector, and utilizes machine learning to then predict risks, impacts, and industry trends as well. And I know we're starting to use it more for some of those things, and also to sort of simplify process as well. Make things quicker for clients, certainly around data capture and making that whole process more efficient, where it can be one of the challenges. It's how do we use that in a way that makes that easier for clients and those that are looking to take action. It can help to optimize resource usage as well. There's a real opportunity around energy efficiency as well, and driving that up. All of that contributes to significant reductions in environmental impact. impact as well. And I think with the increase in mandatory sustainability disclosures, companies are also facing the daunting task of collecting and analyzing vast amounts of ESG data. And I think this is where AI-powered ESG data management software will streamline the process and bring greater accuracy, efficiency, and compliance to this as well. And I think having that standardization would be really useful that technology can potentially bring. I know that it's something that you're really passionate about, Adam. What's your thoughts on the whole AI piece?
We, like you say, we see it a lot. We see it in our everyday lives. We see it on different things we bump into, maybe on our phones, or on things we're interacting with. We see it through business on a daily basis in all sorts of places. And as you say, we it's part of our platform too. It helps with predicting and forecasting and sort of filling in gaps. And it can be really clever. I think there's still perhaps some concerns around some of the ethics and security elements of it for certain applications and uses. But when we're considering sustainability, I think supply chains is a big topic for sustainability. How do we move things, logistics, and how do we move things securely, efficiently, sustainably, and where we can get efficiencies in that process, then
yeah, great. And Adam, you mentioned environmental change, not just disclosure on your list, and we talked about impact. How do you see that playing out?
Oh, sorry, Stephen, I just dropped off for a second.
Yeah, just saying, when we were talking about the things that you saw as trends for the year, you mentioned environmental change, not just disclosure, as being something you thought was important. How do you see that playing out across the?
Excuse me. I think it's one of organizations have got familiar with data collection and measurement, and I think therefore reporting became a topic over the last year or two, and I think now that's going to move into change. So we've got excuse me, we've got more organizations that are measuring, more organizations that are reporting, but change is still early. We're still early in that phase, and so I think that's going to be a real shift throughout 2024, and then and beyond, where I think investors and employees and customers of all organizations will be asking to see, yes, but what you said you were going to, but what happened? I think we see this talking to clients frequently, which is that showing something you have already achieved is more powerful than talking about something that you were aspiring to achieve. But we need to have a good mix of that, and we need to have targets to aim for, but we also need to have those things that we can say, and we've done these things. And I think it's the "and we've done these things" that add the credibility to the rest of the forward-looking plans. And
I think that disclosure piece around this is really important, as you touched on there. And we see that with clients where they're doing the an annual climate impact report or ESG type reporting, where they're talking about the historic actions, but they're committing and putting some concrete commitments in place about future actions as well. And I think this is where disclosure is really important. It's about, it's also about that transparency and measurement as well, but it's that demonstration that you're doing something, that you're going to do something, and holding yourself to account. We know how easy it is to get caught up in business as usual, and unless you're really embedding your actions into your strategy of your business, and you've got regular reviews of what you should be doing, it's really easy to forget about these things. I think that's where a lot of organizations get it wrong. So it's that embedding of sustainability into strategy, I think, is going to be really important this year, but disclosure being in a key part. And I think, if you looked at last year, the Carbon Disclosure Project reported that only 7% of net zero plans had a credible strategy to achieve them. And what percentage of the 93% are sort of box ticking because they just lack the sort of skills, really, or the expertise. They haven't been correctly supported to do that. And I think it's one of the things we really push on, and I think it's really important in a sustainability project as well, and any big change project, that you start to see some wins early because they motivate you to keep going. I think the other thing that it's really important to think about that the benefits to you in the business and be measuring those as well, because I think that's often where it goes wrong. And the point stands, it's no longer good enough to simply have a plan. Companies need to demonstrate that they know how to deliver the plan. And I think that leads us nicely into that next bit, which is around skills gap, as I see it being a challenge. And that's a two-way thing. I think one, there's in the sector, we've got a skills challenge, but I think within companies as well, there's a real challenge there as well. What's your thoughts there, Adam?
Yeah, I think you're right. So, excuse me. I think it's fascinating that that the Carbon Disclosure Project are seeing such low numbers in in sort of having deliverable plans, and it's frightening, really. And sort of you made the point, like in the other 93%, what is the difference, and where is that coming from? Excuse me. But yeah, I think so. I think that we should be considering green skills, in 2024 and 2025, similar to the what digital skills in the early 2000s. It's an increasing demand on a limited skill and experience in the market. It's just it's going to drive up, cost effectively from an organization's point of view to access the skill, whether they are recruiting it directly or whether it's being consulted. There's going to be considerations around how that limited skill is put to best use. And we are trying to achieve what we're doing sort of globally and not individually. So like everything that is being done everywhere is supporting everybody. And so it's until we get more experience and more skill in the sector, which comes through time, then I think we're going to be challenged by that to and see increasing salaries and costs. There was a LinkedIn report recently that said that candidates that had green skills or one green skill is achieving 29% higher salaries than the average workforce. And it's not a shock, and I think that will, it certainly seems to me like that will continue to rise further. It's just is a limited skill in the space. I think for employees, the motivators seem to be more individual than they are organization bound. So it's sort of, what does this mean to me, to my to my knowledge, to my ability, to my CV? And I think sort of as an organization, if you want to build and develop those skills within your existing team, it's probably fair to say that sharing the personal sort of value of that, the individual value of that, is a way to do it. And excuse me, I also think it's no surprise that the likes of the Carbon Literacy Project have seen huge increases in their volumes of people taking their courses over the last 12 or 18 months.
Yeah, and we've launched a number of courses last year around skills specifically for roles within organizations, sort of sustainability, net zero skills for finance, HR, marketing, leadership, etc. So short courses that you can access to give you some of that skill set within your role. And I think that's going to be increasingly important this year. I think more and more people are going to be looking for that and asking for that. And it's really important in that intent to impact piece as well, that you take people with you on the journey. And I think the organizations we see doing this really well do that training piece both before measurement and after, and continue with some of that skills enhancement. Return investment, another thing as well. And that's a big thing. I think you touched on it as you were talking there. I think it's going to be really important, certainly given that sort of cost of business crisis that we saw last year. And we see this being a big consideration for companies when they're starting sustainability programs, and it's a good thing to be measuring on an ongoing basis. It's something we try and build in with our clients. We're seeing anything around that sort of 100 times return investment being possible against the cost of sustainable action within that sort of year one and onwards, and training can be a part of that. along with carbon budgeting, strategic sustainability planning being things that deliver benefit. The key thing is integrating sustainability into strategy, understanding where you can derive those benefits, some of the reasons why you're doing it as well. I think that gets lost with some organizations, but it can help you win more business, get into new markets, deliver new products, and we see that from quite a lot of our clients. We're also seeing a shift as well around, I think, business focus, that return investment piece, and integration of sustainability into strategies, getting companies thinking about. I'm seeing a shift away from net zero, Adam, as a term that companies are talking about, and they're starting to talk about sustainability more and starting to talk about just being a good business, and doing the right thing, and sustainability being part of that, but integrating that into the shorter term business strategic thinking. So typical 3 to 5 year plans rather than 20 years of net zero plans or something. And if you think about that against the average tenure of a CEO being 3 to 5 years, somebody's not wanting to commit beyond the things they're going to deliver in the organization themselves, and setting the business up to long-term things that are difficult to predict sometimes as well.
Yeah, and I guess also wanting to see that impact sort of behind them, and say,
Yes,
I took that business from A to B and then moved on. And again, it's that demonstrating, isn't it, in this important part of an organization or the business world, and of all of our world, but that being able to demonstrate that I'm aware and I can, we can make difference, and I did that previously.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing a shift in government policy. Spiral cost of doing business is reshaping how companies do consider sustainability or net zero alongside their other obligations. But those that invest to reduce risk are finding that it has an impact on increasing profitability as well. There's a whole innovation piece linked to that as well, Adam, which I think you're probably well placed to touch on.
Yeah, I think it sort of it's just it comes back to again some of the bits we've been touching on throughout this conversation, but I think we're sort of on that cusp of starting to see now new innovation, new technology starting to come through into this into the into sustainability and into all industries. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, businesses, organizations have been busy trying to get to grips with the reporting side, so measurement and reporting, and trying to get that right and correct and accurate. But as that now starts to sort of settle down and become sort of commonplace, I think that starts to make way for new innovations. So we're aware of what we need to do, and now we know that, and legislation is with us, and we've got an idea of that. I think that delivers opportunity, and I think that's where we'll start to see innovation coming through this year and next. So it really is taking advantage of this changing space, and I think that will lead to innovations, and I mentioned it a minute ago, but I think particularly supply chain. I think that'll be a big focus, but supply chain will naturally drive down impact, and sort of drive up sustainability for all organizations.
And I expect we'll see a greater standardization in terms of what carbon footprint reporting needs to include. And we could point to sectors where we know there's a number of organizations who are reporting allegedly on the same thing, but are all doing that in very different ways and not actually reporting on the same thing. But they're all saying we measure our carbon footprint, and scope 3 being a big part of that as well. I think that's going to be a big thing this year, about everyone having to do more around scope 3, and there'll be a number of pressures on that, I think often just from stakeholders. But I think we'll start to see more requirement for granular information on scope 3 reporting, which is going to have a big cascade right down through supply chain as well. Really. The other thing we touched on earlier was the whole green marketing thing. We've seen a lot changing in that space in terms of new EU ruling and coming out last year, and actually was just ratified earlier this week. And there's the whole advertising standards as well in the UK. What's your thoughts on how new sustainability legislation will impact the marketing landscape?
I think there's I think there's a couple of bits to it, as you say. So we've got legislation driving change, and and that's that's needed. Again, back on your last point, it's about the transparency. Somebody using a term that's not clearly defined or widely known and understood is a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
issue. So I think that's one thing. And I think I think we've got sort of generational differences as well. So what it used to be okay maybe to say that this is sustainable,
yeah,
this
yeah,
product or this, I think that Gen Z are sort of are not going to support purpose campaigns like maybe we have done in the last period, in the last decade maybe.
yeah, yeah,
So things like acting responsibly, respecting diversity, reducing environmental impact, all of that is just like a requirement. It's like this is a baseline, and this isn't a feature or a benefit. It's just where you need to be.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I think we need to be looking for more honesty, more transparency, more humility, and less claims
yeah,
about
yeah,
stuff that we've done.
yeah, yeah,
As an organization, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
we need to be just more sort of human about it, and just be clear
yeah.
on what we've got, where it's come from, and how it's fair that that's happened.
Yeah, and I see that sort of there's a real integration of purpose into your, the DNA of your business being important. You can't do this on a sort of face value thing, and I think that's where some organisations get this wrong, where it's they're trying to do this from a marketing perspective rather than it being at the core of what you do as a business and really embedding that. James has made a good point on the comments there about organisations looking more broadly at the UN SDGs rather than just thinking about your environmental impact. And I think that leads us nicely into that sort of nature piece as well that we're starting to see increasing interest on. And I think this is I'm really feel optimistic about this. I think it's a good thing. We've seen the Task Force for Nature-related Financial Disclosures recommendations last September, I think it was, which enables companies to assess, disclose, and manage their nature-related risks and impacts. I am starting to see more of this being discussed, and I think a more broader, one sort of I think some of the ESG type reporting, but a much bigger, what do the things we do as an organization, how does that impact on our environment, but not just thinking about that from an emissions perspective as well. There's a risk that some of this may lead to a plateau as companies have to source more data and try and keep pace with more changes that then needs to be signed off, by both sort of legal and finance teams internally as well. And I think there's a shortage of knowledge in the sector at the minute as well around some of this in terms of getting it done. But I do see this as a bit of a trend. I think it's probably going to pick up throughout the year. I think it's probably going to be another couple of years before this really takes off. But I do see more and more interest in this. And I think people want to become sort of nature positive. Is something I'm not quite sure what that means yet, but and how we measure the materiality of that's a bit unclear. So it feels like there's a bit of a way to go. But I think that's certainly it's something we're going to hear more about this year. And what else do you think we're seeing for 2024? We're sort of near wrapping up time. I do have to go in a minute, so I may just drop off. New standards, Adam, lots going on around that.
Yeah, so there's the EU standard. So we've got CSRD, which is Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is a Jan 24 sort of release or update on that. And then we've got the CSDDD, which is a Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. And then in the US standards, they're expected in April. So they're sort of the latest changes in global standards that are coming through. And I think the other thing, we've touched on it several times already, but it's value chain things. So I think it's the things we're expecting to see through that value chain. But I think the key message throughout all of it is transparency. It's what have we done, how have we done it, and make sure that's clear to understand. I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going to sort of wrap it up there. Adam, if I can leave you to sort of answer any questions and round up today. Just I have to jump onto another call. Fascinating discussion. Loads we get. I think we could talk about this for ages. Thanks for your time today, and thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks. I will.